Morning, everyone, especially to our professor, Ma'am Nerissa Malco Beatriz. Today, I will discuss about the theories of learning. By the way, I am Leonardo M. Lanciso from Tigaon District. What is theory of learning? Theories of learning develop hypotheses that describe how this process takes place. Theories of learning are abstract frameworks that describe how knowledge is received and processed during the learning experience. So, when talking about the theory, we must do so considering they arise as answers to the questions asked by researchers. So, a learning theory is defined as a set of different concepts that observe, describe, explain, and guide the learning process of people and everything that relates to this process. So, why do we need to know or understand these theories of learning? An understanding of learning theories helps teachers connect to all different kinds of students. Teachers can focus on different learning styles to reach different students, creating teaching that focuses directly on student needs and aptitudes. So, we have five main theories of learning. First, behaviorism. Second, cognitivism. Third, social learning theory. Fourth, social constructivism. Fifth, multiple intelligences. When we say behaviorism, it is confined to observable and measurable behavior. Learning is defined by the outward expression of new behaviors and context independent biological basis for learning. Focuses on observable behaviors. The key concepts of behaviorism comprise the stimulus response or SR equation, the classical and operant conditioning, and the reinforcement and punishment notions. A common example of behaviorism is positive reinforcement. A student gets a small treat if they get 100% on their spelling test. In the future, students work hard and study for their test in order to get the reward. Behaviorism is key for educators because it impacts how students react and behave in the classroom and suggests that the teachers can directly influence how their students behave. It also helps teachers understand that a student's home environment and lifestyle can be impacting their behavior, helping them see it objectively and work to assist with improvement. It means that behaviorism states all stimuli are followed by a response based on the environment in which the individual is. Learning can be explained from observable events related to the behavior and the context in which learning occurs. Studies concerning behavioral theory are based on experimental psychology. And also this behaviorism or the behavioral learning theory is a popular concept that focuses on how students learn. This learning theory states that behaviors are learned from the environment and says that innate or inherent factors have very little influence on behavior. A common example of behaviorism is positive reinforcement. Next is behaviorism in the classroom. First, rewards and punishment. The system is based on rewards and punishments. Behaviorists believe that if teachers provide positive reinforcement or rewards, whenever students perform a desired behavior, they will learn to perform the behavior on their own. The same concept applies to the punishment. Number 2, responsibility for students' learning rests squarely with the teacher. It means that the role of the learner is to be acted upon by the teacher-controlled environment. The teacher's role is to manipulate the environment to shape behavior. The teacher provides input, stimuli, and expects predictable output or the desired change in behavior. Okay. Number 3, lecture-based and highly structured. So here in behaviorism, information is transferred from teachers to learners, from a response to the right stimulus. Students are passive participants in behavioral learning. Teachers are giving them the information as an element of stimulus response. Okay, next, critics of behaviorism. It does not account for the processes taking place in the mind that cannot be observed. So it means that it ignores the mental processes that are involved in learning. Next, advocates for passive students, learning in the teacher-centered environment. In behaviorism, the students receive information from the teacher and internalize it. This means that a student will listen and read the material and reflect internally without further reflection back or reviewing. Next, one size fits all. So, behaviorism is a one size fits all approach to education. Meaning po, ang lesson are for all. Regardless po kung anong level of ability mayroon ang mga mag-aaral. Next, knowledge itself is given and absolute. So, meaning po ang kaalaman ay given na sa mga mag-aaral, nasa sa kanila na lang po kung i-absorb nila. There is a program, instruction, and teacher grouping. So the teacher opens the session by speaking to the whole class. The assignments are made and the student then go to work. Everyone stays in the room until the teacher signals the end of the study period. Materials are then put away and the class ends for all students at the same time. Cognitivism grew in response to behaviorism. Knowledge is stored cognitively as symbols. Learning is the process of connecting symbols in a meaningful and memorable way. Studied focuses on the mental processes that facilitate symbol connection. So, cognitivism is a learning theory that focuses on how information is received, organized, stored, and retrieved by the mind. Therefore, cognitivism looks beyond observable behavior, viewing learning as internal mental processes. In this view, learners are actively involved in the way they process information. And cognitivism focuses on mental processes, including how people perceive, think, remember, learn, solve problems, and direct their attention to one stimulus rather than another. Cognitivism in the classroom. First, inquiry-oriented projects. So, when we say inquiry-based project work, involves a group of students investigating a worthy question, issue, problem, or idea. This is the type of authentic project work that those working in the disciplines actually undertake to create or build knowledge. These projects involve serious engagement and investigation. Next, provide opportunities for the testing of hypotheses. So, cognitivism gives an opportunity for the testing of hypotheses. Number 3, curiosity is encouraged. Cognitivism encourages curiosity. It helps children to be more observant and to think about things and try to figure them out. Critics of cognitivism. Like behaviorism, knowledge itself is given and absolute. It does not account enough for individuality. It has a little emphasis on affective characteristics. Meaning po, katulad din po ng behaviorism, nag-given na po yung knowledge. Another is, that is refers to cognitive processes that we cannot directly observe. It relies heavily on inference. And it ignores other factors toward behavior that have been shown to affect behavior. Next is social learning theory. Grew out of cognitivism. Learning takes place through observation and sensorial experiences. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Social learning theory is the basis of the movement against violence in media and video games. In other words, social learning theory is the theory of learning process and social behavior which propose that new behaviors can be acquired by observing and imitating others. And social learning theory bridge the gap between traditional learning theory and cognitive learning. It involves looking at how cognitive learning, which is learning by doing, processing, and experiencing, influence how we learn. Next. Social learning theory in the classroom. Collaborative learning in group work. So group work refers to a collaborative learning environment where students work through problems and assessments together. Students are able to delegate roles and responsibilities, pool their knowledge and skills, and receive support from one another. Number 2, modeling responses and expectations. Modeling or social learning is the process of understanding models and using social media so that the learning can be enhanced further. The goal of modeling is to learn through observing these people and understand that a mental state has everything to do with the end results of a circumstance. Number 3, there are opportunities to observe experts in action. So social learning gives an opportunity to observe experts in action. Next, critics of social learning theory. It does not take into account individuality, context, and experience as mediating factors. Suggests students learn best as passive receivers of sensory stimuli, as opposed to being active learners. Emotions and motivations are not considered important or connect to learning. So, although heavily supported through empirical research, the primary criticism of the social learning theory includes that it assumes passivity in the nature of the observer who receive rewards or punishments. That the theory does not explain why certain behaviors are rewarded or punished, and that is failed to explain. Next is social constructivism. Grew out of and in response to cognitivism and was formed around metacognition. Knowledge is actively constructed. Learning is a search for meaning by the learner. Contextualized, an inherently social activity, dialogue and recursive, the responsibility of the learner. So, if constructivism used in the classroom, the learners do a journaling. In other words, social constructivism is defined as a social group constructing things for one another, collaboratively creating a small culture of shared artifacts with shared meaning. And social constructivism is the view that learn occurs through social interaction and the help of others. Open in the group, social constructivism posits that the understanding an individual develop is shaped through social interaction. Next, social constructivism theory in the classroom. First, journaling. Second, experiential activities. Next, personal focus. Then, collaborative and cooperative learning. So, if constructivism used in the classroom, the learners do a journaling. It's more on experiential activities. It focuses on personal, and the learners have a chance to work collaboratively. And a constructivist classroom is learner-centered. Students are active learner and not just recipient of information. The teacher facilitates and guides students to learning. Next is critics of social constructivism. Suggests that knowledge is neither given nor absolute. It is often seen as less rigorous than traditional approaches to instruction. It does not fit well with traditional age grouping and rigid terms semester. Meaningful, here in social constructivism, it will depend on the group. Some learner may not be motivated enough to actively engage in the learning process. It's viewed by critics as being too idealistic. Students need guidance and direction rather than being told that they can create their own meaning. Last theory is multiple intelligence theory. Grew out of constructivism and was framed around metacognition. All people are born with 8 intelligence. 1. Verbal, linguistic. 2. Visual, spatial. 3. Logical, mathematical. 4. Kinesthetic. 5. Musical. 6. Naturalist. 7. Interpersonal. And 8. Intrapersonal. Enable students to leverage their strengths and purposefully target and develop their weaknesses. So it means that multiple intelligences is a theory describing the different ways students learn and acquire information. These multiple intelligences range from the use of words, numbers, pictures, and music to the importance of social interaction, introspection, physical movement, and being in tune with nature. And multiple intelligences refers to a theory describing the different ways students learn and acquire information. Next, multiple intelligence theory in the classroom. Delivery of instruction via multiple mediums. So it means that the teacher prepares a differentiated instruction. It will depend on the level of ability of the learner. Next, student-centered classroom. So, since this theory believes that the learner possesses multiple of intelligences, so it is student-centered. So the teacher here is only a facilitator. Authentic assessment means that in multiple intelligences theory, use the authentic assessment where learners apply their required skills to a new situation or environment. Last, self-directed learning. Self-directed means that every learner takes initiative with or without the help of others. In diagnosing their learner needs, formulating learning goals, and evaluating learning. Critics of multiple intelligence. Lack of quantifiable evidence that multiple intelligences exist. Lack of evidence that use of multiple intelligences as a curricular approach has any discernible impact on learning. Suggestive of a departure from core curricula and standard. The theory rejects the idea that intelligence has to do with the logical, mathematical, and linguistic abilities associated with the IQ. The trouble with multiple intelligences theory is that it corrals all the heterogeneous forms of human intelligence into a few categories of dubious provenance. And another is, according to some critics, definition of intelligence is too broad, and that is 8 different intelligences simply represent talent, personality, traits, and ability. That's all my report. Thank you for listening.